Hi, in the last session we learned how do we create variables so that we can store information in that and utilize that information at a later stage. But the values whatever we have stored in the variable were hard coded, meaning it was explicitly assigned while writing the source code. Now in this session we are going to learn how do we read input from the user at the runtime and assign that values to the variables. Let us try to write a very simple program wherein we'll try to read the name of person at the runtime and then wish him a good morning message. So first we'll try to print a message asking the user to enter his name. I'll say enter the name. Now after looking at this message, when the user enters the input, now we require a mechanism through which we can read input from the user at the runtime. The Python language provides you a function called as input to read input from the user at the runtime. We use input. Now this input function will accept the input from the keyboard at the runtime and it's going to return me that input which has to be captured into a variable. Like I would like to capture it into a variable called as name. Now after this I would like to wish him good morning. So I'll just say good morning and I'd like to print the name. Now let us try to run this particular program. You can just observe it has executed the first print statement, and on executing the input statement it is waiting for the user to enter the input. Now let me give my name and you can just observe the program is printing a message called as good morning Sikandar, and Sikandar was the input given at the runtime. Now here we have used print function to print a message to the screen, and after looking at that message the user is going to enter the input. Now Python allows you to combine the print statement and the input statement in a single line, meaning we can utilize the input function itself to print a prompt. So what are the message we are passing it here for the print function, we can take this and pass it on to the input. So instead of writing two functions we can basically have only one function which is the input, and that is going to print the message on the prompt, and it will also do the job of reading the value from the user. So let me try to rerun this program. Let's enter the name. Right. Now one key difference you might have observed that the print statement was printing a message, printing a new line, and it was waiting for the input. The input function is printing the message and in the same line it is waiting for the input. Now let us try to see if we can read numericals value from the user. I'll modify this program to say that I would like to read a number. I'd like to enter some numerical value here, right? And then I'd like to go back, run this program, and I'd like to enter some fractional values, right? So you can just observe it is able to read numerical values also. The next thing what we'll try to do is we'll try to read two numbers from the user and perform some calculations on the two numbers. Like I'll just say I want to read two numbers. I'll just say enter the first number, and the same way I'd like to say enter the second number. Once the user enters these two numbers, first I'd like to print what is my number 1 and I'd like to print number 2. Both these numbers I'm trying to print. Let me try to run this. It's reading properly. Now I'd like to go back. I'd like to perform the sum of these two numbers. So I'm trying to write total equal to num1 plus num2. And then I'd like to print on the screen the total equal to, I'd like to print the value of total. Let's run this program. Now let me try to enter the first number as 4, second number is 5. What is the expected output here? It should be 4 plus 5, 9. Let's see what is the output we are getting in this machine. I'm getting as 45, I'm not getting as 9. And what exactly is doing it is concatenating this 4 and 5, like two digits is trying to merge like this rather than adding as numericals. Now what is the reason behind this? The reason behind this is whenever you use input function, the input function will always read as a string. So let's verify this. We have seen these values. Let us also see what is the data type of num1 and what is the data type of num2. I'd like to write type of num1 and I'd like to also print the type of num2. I'm entering 4 and 5. you can just observe that the data type of this variables is string and it is not integer. Now if you want to treat them as integer, you have to apply the conversion function to convert from string to an integer. And the conversion function to convert from string to an integer is int. We need to pass the string like num1, and this will return me a numerical value. I can collect it back into the same variable. After converting it num1 and num2, I would like to print what is the data type of this, and I'd like to perform the addition. Let's run this. I'll enter 4 and 5. As you have seen, initially it will be strings, but after conversion it will be integer, and once it is integer, you can just observe 4 plus 5 is 9. Right? One more key thing what you might have observed is the data type of num1 and num2 was string, and after the execution of these statements, the data type of num1 and num2 was changed. So from this what we learnt is the data type of a variable is also not fixed. You might have, assign a numerical value for the variable, it will be integer, and if you assign a string later on, it's going to be string type. Or if you assign some boolean value later on, it's going to become a boolean. Now if you want to take a fractionals like numbers with decimal points, then the conversion function is float. When I run this program, and if I say some fractionals out here, and if I try to convert it with the help of integer, it's going to give me a problem because it contains a non-digit value like decimal point. But if you want to say I want to treat them as floating point values, then instead of using the conversion function as integer, you have to use the conversion function float. Then you can enter numbers with decimal point. So in this particular session, we learned how do we read input from the user, and we have observed that the input function is always going to read the input as string format. So if you want to convert it to other type like integer or float, we have to take the help of conversion functions. Now when you try to convert to integer, the string can only contain digits. In case if you want to convert it to a float, then the string can contain digits with one decimal point into it. In case if the string consists of non-digits, and if you're trying to convert it into an integer, it throws me a runtime exception. Thank you.